There was very little I liked about this book. In fact, my favorite part was probably just finishing it. Hello friends, my name is Lauren and welcome back to my channel. So if you are on BookTube or are within the book community, then chances are you have heard about Midnight Sun, the new Twilight novel that came out just a few days ago. I heard about this novel when it was originally announced a couple of months ago earlier this year, but it did not really mean all that much to me. I had never read Twilight, I've never seen the movies, and I've generally never really cared about reading or watching either. However, I did get a copy of the book last year, so I thought if I'm ever gonna read this book, now would be the perfect time, so that way I could participate a little bit in the hype and finally understand a little bit more as to why everyone cares about Team Edward and Team Jacob. So within the last couple weeks, I have picked up this book and actually finished reading most of it in the last couple of days. And I was somewhat optimistic going into this book because I know so many people love it. I think I might have missed the good parts of the book though. I understand that this book is one of the most important books in YA because it basically started off the genre, it was the foundation for so many books to follow, etc, etc. But I read this book for the first time in 2020 without any nostalgic feelings, without feeling the impact of this story, and it was kind of a letdown. This is just a quick warning. I did not like this book. So this video will be very negative as it is a rant review. If you love this book, then I'm happy you like it. None of my opinions are aimed at anyone or tear anyone down that likes this book. These are all just my own opinions. That being said though, if you do not want to hear my negative thoughts on Twilight by Stephenie Meyer, I would suggest you kindly leave now because this will be a highly negative review.
Hello everyone, I'm currently editing this video at like 1 a.m. but it's come to my attention as I was watching a couple other people's videos that don't know if I haven't gotten to it in the Twilight series or not, but I don't think I noticed anything in this book, but there was a misrepresentation in the Twilight books with a certain tribe, and so because of this there has been like a fundraiser going around to help the actual tribe in real life move to higher ground for risk of natural disaster, I believe. I will link the link to that like donation part in the description down below, so be sure to check that out because I would like to do my part to support this, and I don't think it was mentioned in the first Twilight book, but I think it's only right to push this forward, so check the link out down below in the description, and I will also write a little bit more about what it is down below in the description, so just check that out. Anyways, back on with the video.
Okay, so you're still here? Let's get started. So a little bit about this book in case you don't know what Twilight is about. We follow, I believe, a 17-year-old girl, Bella, who moves from her mother's home in Phoenix, Arizona down to where her father lives at her birthplace in Forks, Washington. She's just a normal girl trying to make some new friends at school when she notices this guy from afar and immediately feels some kind of connection for him, if you want to call it that. I'm going to take the rest of the synopsis from the book itself. About 3 things I'm absolutely positive. First, Edward was a vampire. Second, there was a part of him, and I didn't know how dominant that part might be, that thirsted for my blood. And third, I was unconditionally and irrevocably in love with him. This book is also described as deeply seductive and extraordinarily suspenseful, which it's not. But I think that just really shows how much the YA genre has changed in the last 15 years. So basically, in conclusion, this book is about a love story between a human and a vampire, which, as you could probably imagine, has some problems right off the bat. But I did think the dynamic between a human and a vampire, especially in like a love story setting, would be really cool to read about. So hence, like I said, I was relatively excited going into this book. However, with that, we're gonna jump into my thoughts first with the non-spoilers. Sadly to say, I did give this book a 1 out of 5 stars. Internet, don't kill me please, but I gave it a 1 out of 5 stars. Hopefully by the end of this review, you will understand why. There was very little I liked about this book. In fact, my favorite part was probably just finishing it. So I think that about sums up my whole reading experience. Overall, there was nothing I really liked in this book. I didn't like the painfully boring and or cringy writing, the flat characters, the non-existent plot, the insta-love romance, and like nothing. Really nothing. I think what the fandom kind of believes now is that they understand Twilight is not the best written book, but they still love it. And so for that reason, I don't think my opinions of this book might be that far off from other people's. I just simply don't have the nostalgic personal connection to the story, so hence I think I just see the story for as it is, and I don't have all those great feelings connected with the story, so hence it's not that good a read. Like, I would not recommend it if you had any desire to read it. Like, it's really not that great. My non-spoiler section is pretty short for this video because I do think that a lot of people have already read Twilight, as it's been like 15 years since it's come out, but I will just say a couple more things before I jump into spoilers. For me, something that is probably the most important thing in a book is characters, and I will talk specifically about characters in a few moments, but I found the characters very, very weak in this book. Especially the main characters, you'd think you'd have the most time to learn about them or to see them grow. I didn't really see any growth in the whole like 500 pages of this book. Or if there was, it was like very surface level growth, and we want more of the internal part, which really wasn't there. I also really disliked the romance between the main characters. I felt very, I don't want to say too much, but it felt very forced almost. As well, many of the dialogues felt forced throughout the novel, and it just really wasn't something for me. And I definitely think that this book, if it were to be rewritten now, of course Stephanie Meyer would probably take all the lessons from YA and how it's grown as a genre and put it into her book. However, just going based off what I read, I just did not like it. It was definitely not worth my time reading, and for 500 pages it really felt like nothing kind of happened. There was a lot of useless description, and while the pacing was okay, I just think overall the story was a big bunch of nothing. So for that reason, I do not really like it. There isn't anything else I can really think about talking about for the non-spoiler section, so I will be jumping into spoilers now. For whatever reason, if you do not want to be spoiled, I would kindly suggest you leave now, watch the movies or read the book or something, and then come back and we can discuss. So 3, 2, 1. Let's jump in. So I will be talking about 4 main categories in this book: characters, romance, plot, and writing. And first we're going to start off with the characters. And kind of like I already said, characters for me are the most important part in a story. Like, no plot but interesting characters, like I can work with that. Sucky writing but I'm invested in the characters, amazing. But sucky characters, ma'am, no can do. In my mind, there's really only 2 characters that are worth talking about, being Bella and Edward. Sure, there was like the parents, the Cullens family, Bella's friends, and Jacob, but none of them were that memorable, significant, or frankly interesting. So I'm just gonna keep it focused on the main 2 characters, Bella and Edward. Bella is probably one of the most annoying protagonists I have ever read about. She's so boring, okay? She's so boring. When I think of her throughout the story, all I see is the quiet, clumsy, kind of smart but like dumb girl at the same time. Very stereotypical, very bland, very flat. That's what she is. But somehow this girl has not 1, not 2, not 3, but like 4 or 5 guys over the course of this novel that somehow take a liking to her. This girl with 0 personality has like 4 or 5 guys chasing after her in this book. Like, am I missing the allure to Bella? I think I am. I think Bella herself says it best, actually. I'm just gonna quickly read a scene between her and Edward. Well, look at me. I'm absolutely ordinary. Well, except for the bad things, like all the near-death experiences and being so clumsy that I'm almost disabled. I'm pretty sure you can't say that, but moving on. And look at you. I waved my hand toward him in all his bewildering perfection. Then he said, "You don't see yourself very clearly, you know. I'll admit you're dead on about the bad things. But you didn't hear what every human male in this school was thinking about you on your first day." So essentially, Bella admits she has no personality, and all Edward contributes is that people think she's pretty. That has nothing to do with her personality. Therefore, even Edward thinks she's boring. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Also, this is maybe more of a writing problem, but I'm going to include it in the character because it happens to Bella at least once a chapter. This girl blushes so much, and it's annoying. For example, I signed, one blush bleeding into the next. Or Edward saying, "The blush on your cheeks is lovely." Like, that's so annoying. Like, no one blushes all cutesy like that, like every 5 seconds, and that's just, it just annoyed me. Like, Bella is like just such a stereotypical blank character, and I hate it so much. I don't understand why people like her character. Maybe as a person she's fine, but as a character, incredibly boring. Like I kind of said, she's painted as smart, but also is dumb. And it kind of annoys me because I definitely think the YA genre has taken more of a turn to having stronger female characters. Bella is a great example of the opposite of that. Because in the science class, for example, she's like someone who knows the labs and is like doing doing well at them, but then when it comes to making her own decisions, she's kind of stupid. Like, for example, later on in the book, closer towards the end, when she gets the phone call saying that like her mom is in trouble and whatever, and she doesn't tell literally the other vampires the lethal weapons about what's happening. She thinks she can take care of it herself, which she can't. And so I don't understand why she's making these decisions, even though she's supposed to be smart, just to be saved in the end. It didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And so just because of that, she doesn't have brain cells, she has no personality, and for me as the reader, her character growth was like little to nothing, if anything at all. To me, she did not grow as a character at all. Like, maybe I missed the character growth, but all I saw to me was that she just would do anything to be with Edward. And that's not character growth, that's just romance. So as her own standalone character, I'm very disappointed in just her as a whole. I'm gonna jump over to Edward now, who annoyed me equally. Again, with the personality, I don't know anything about him other than the fact that apparently he's like super good looking and he's a vampire. That's it. That's all I know. He's just like, I've had a dark past and have never found love, and now you are gonna love me, Miss Teenage Girl, even though I'm technically 100 years older than you. But details. Also, Edward is creepy because he follows Bella around. I don't care what his reason was, if his scent was towards her, whatever. He had no right to follow her and stalk her. And it's so normalized in this book. Like what? So when she goes out into the town with Jess and her friends, he follows her there for whatever reason, and then he not only does this, but he admits to her he stalks her when she sleeps. Bella says the door was unlocked. No, I used the key from under the eave. Bella then thinks, I was sure I'd never use this key in front of him. He says, I was curious about you. You spied on me, but somehow I couldn't infuse my voice with the proper rage. I was flattered. Ma'am, if you are flattered by someone stalking you, the bar is so low. The bar is so low. Oh my god, this just disappoints me. This just disappoints me in so many different ways. And for those reasons, and probably more I am forgetting, I did not like our two main characters. Also with Edward, he doesn't have any character growth. Any character growth he has, again, is like Bella. It's surface level and has to do with romance. It has nothing to do with him. He is overprotective for no reason. Bella completely gives into this, making her character weak now and boring on top of everything else. And both of them together, I'm gonna get into in a second, I just don't like it. So for that reason, I did not like the characters in this book, and every other side character, they were like okay, but like none of them really stuck out to me all that much, except maybe Alice, I believe her name is, one of the people in Edward's family. But other than that, none of them I really cared about. Like if they died or not, I literally would not have cared. So for that reason, big negative F, whatever you want to say, big fail for the characters for me. Now, I'm gonna jump into the next category I'm gonna talk about, which is romance. And now, romance for me, I wouldn't even say is that hard for me to enjoy, but I, again, did not like it in this book. Surprisingly, I didn't like Bella, I didn't like Edward, so, you know, I didn't really like them together either. And not only that, I hate the insta-love trope with a passion. Like, there could be fairies flying around, the setting could be like on a whole other new planet, yet the insta-love trope is still going to be the most unrealistic thing in the story. Tell me I'm wrong. Bella annoyed me from the very beginning because she like saw him and was immediately intrigued by him, and we later learned that Edward felt the same way. And I don't know if people feel like this in real life, but when you look at someone for the first time, I'm like pretty sure you're not like, I'm in love with them right now, because that's the vibe I was getting from Twilight. For example, near the beginning of the book, she says something like this. She's anxious to go to school, and she says, if I'm being honest with myself, I knew I was eager to get to school because I would see Edward Cullen, and that was very, very stupid. I was still tongue-tied whenever I pictured his perfect face. I was well aware that my league and his league were spheres that did not touch, and I shouldn't be all anxious to see him today. She's like paying extra attention to him for really no reason. All their interactions together feel very forced, very fake, and even though I guess they each have their own reasons for liking each other, I did not see the appeal in the slightest, purely almost because of the insta-love trope. She also had dreams about him. They weren't even like talking often. She just like saw him one day, spoke to him like twice, and was like, that's it, I love you now. And I'm like, man, that is not how it works. Also, their relationship moved very fast. They've maybe talked for like 2 months, and this is like the span of them like just gazing at each other and like kind of dating, kind of. And this is the conversation they had. I groaned. What did you hear? His gold eyes grew very soft. You said that you loved me. You knew that already, I reminded him. It was nice to hear just the same. I hid my face against his shoulder. I love you, I whispered. You are my life now, he answered simply. You are my life now. Ma'am, y'all have dated for like what? Like a day, a couple days. Calm yourself. Calm yourself. These two were just too obsessed with each other for no real apparent reason. They don't even have personalities. Like, I don't understand why they liked each other. It was never apparent to me. So for that reason, I did not like the romance in this book. They were the main romance that happened in this book, so there wasn't really much else to focus on. But for those reasons, and many more, I did not like the romance between them. It felt very forced, very fake, and I didn't really understand why they both liked each other, because apparently Edward was like super beautiful and so was Bella, but like that's not a reason to like someone, especially when you're like, you're my whole life now, you know? It doesn't sit well with me. Next, I'm going to be jumping into plot stuff. And now for me, I felt for a book that is 500 pages, there was like little to no plot, which is very unfortunate, especially since the characters sucked. I think that the first 200 pages might have been the most boring thing I have ever read. It is essentially just Bella going about her day-to-day life. Her slipping on the driveway in the car, her going to school, her talking with friends, her going to like the mall. Why do I care about these things? There's no reason why I should care about them. And it was never apparent, still now, why I should care about them. It wasn't even to show growth as a character. I don't understand the point of wasting 200 pages doing very meaningless tasks. After 200 pages, there's kind of some stuff between Edward and Bella, and we learn more of his vampire backstory, but to get to that point, it was boring. It was boring. There was also a lot of useless description, which I'll talk about in a few moments. The plot. So one thing that stuck out to me is when Bella goes, I believe it is, to the beach or camping or something with a bunch of people, and Jacob pulls her aside and essentially tells Bella that there's some kind of connection with vampires to the Cullens family, some history thing, and Bella like does her research after and like kind of believes him. And to me, as a normal human being, if someone told me that this family is connected to vampires, I don't think I would believe them, you know? But Bella's out here like doing her research, and I'm like, ma'am, I don't care if he's actually a vampire. The fact that you believe from someone else that he's a vampire, it just takes up 10 pages and it makes no sense. Like why is she dumb? I don't get it. Another thing is that Edward saves Bella twice, one from getting hit in the school parking lot, and the other is from the people that are like catcalling, following her, and trying to like steal something from her. I never really figured out what was happening with that, but it was very like stereotypical almost, I guess, that she was being saved by him and then she just fell like hopelessly in love with him. It's like, I mean, like, I guess, but like, I don't like it. It still doesn't sit well with me, and it feels very forced, as in this only reason he was there was just to push the romance plot a little bit more forward, and it just felt very forced. Like, why was he there at the perfect time? I would say, however, the main plot thing you'd want to say comes at around closer to 400 pages when the Cullens family is playing a game of baseball and this other vampire family comes to them, and then we meet like the tracker or whatever, who somehow again takes an interesting liking to Bella. We don't really know why that is that much, other than he views her as a challenge. Felt very forced. Like, if they weren't playing baseball at that one specific spot, none of that would have happened. And so nothing built up to that other than Edward and Bella's relationship, which was kind of built off nothing as well. It was just felt very forced. And finally, I don't know if this was supposed to be a plot twist or not, but when Bella decided she wanted to become a vampire or whatever, I felt like I knew that was gonna happen from the first page of the book. And I didn't know anything about Twilight because I knew where the story was headed within the first 50 pages. She was already hopelessly in love with him, and he didn't seem to hate her at the beginning either. It just seemed like it would happen, and then surprisingly, it did happen. And so it felt very lame, felt forced, was boring. For that reason, I did not like any of the plot elements in this book. And finally, the last thing I'm going to talk about is the writing itself. God, it was so bad. I'm going to read to you this amazingly well-written line in the book that it's so good. This is said by Bella, like her internal thoughts. I meant to sweep dramatically out of the room, but of course I caught the toe of my boot on the door jamb and dropped my books. She's so clumsy and quirky. What can I say? There's also very like cringy, obvious foreshadowing to the fact that Edward is a vampire. First he misses the blood lab in science class, then he's like running really fast, and then he also goes camping in a place where people go hunt for animals. Like, it was painfully obvious because we already know from the back of the book alone that Edward is a vampire. The foreshadowing, could have been a lot subtler, you know? Also, like I already said, the female character, the main one, Bella, did not like her. But then we have this, and it just annoyed me on like a next level. So Bella has finished an essay that was due in English class, and Mike is speaking to Bella, and he's like, "What are you writing yours on?" And she says, "Whether Shakespeare's treatment of the female characters is misogynistic." That's not a big statement. And then the next sentence is, "He stared at me like I've just spoken in pig Latin." She didn't even say anything that dramatic. All she did was mention how Shakespeare's treatment of female characters might be misogynistic. And he's like, women smart? No. And so I'm like, was that really necessary in this book? You could have had a win. You could have had a quick dialogue about this. It's a small issue, you could have brought it up. Considering the fact that we spent like pages talking about Bella driving off the driveway because it's slippery. I don't understand why you couldn't have spent more time. Maybe even talking about that. Add some good to this book. And one more thing is just the fact that, I guess this kind of connects more to characters, but the fact that they connected so weirdly at the beginning of the book. Like Edward says to her, "You put on a good show," he said slowly, "but I'd be willing to bet that you're suffering more than you let anyone else see." Like, ma'am, you are doing a science lab together. Calm yourself. No need for this deep psychological stuff. He can't even read her mind, so it doesn't even make sense why he's bringing any of this stuff up, you know? So honestly, I made a lot of notes for this book, but I think those were like the key, most important things I wanted to talk about because, you know, overall, I really did not enjoy this book. I felt it was very boring. I felt it was very stereotypical, just flat, little to no character growth, and I understand that this book was written 15 years ago, paved the way for a lot of other books, but just going onto this book itself, I'm not impressed. Anywho, I hope I did not offend anyone with my opinions. These are just all my own opinions. They are not meant to harm anyone. If you like this book, I'm happy for you because at least someone can enjoy this book. Unfortunately, it's just not going to be myself. That being said though, if you did enjoy this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and comment down below what your thoughts on Twilight are, if the new book's any good, or if I should continue on with the next book. Because I don't really want to, but I don't know if it gets better or if it's worth it or not. You know, just let me know. But that is all I really have to say about this book. If you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them. Just like I said, leave me a comment down below. But overall, 1 out of 5 stars. I would not recommend this book. I kind of felt like I wasted my time. I could have read something so much better, but here we are. I hope everyone enjoys Midnight Sun. If you end up reading it, I hope it's good. And I think I will just sign off there. So thank you all so much for watching. I will see you all in the next video. So until then, bye.